A Fox News alert, President Trump announcing U.S. strikes in Nigeria over Christmas, writing on Truth Social, quote, "At my direction as commander-in-chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight there was." Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen joining us now to react. Mark, thank you for joining us. Hope you had a great Christmas. The president clearly never takes a day off and, really doubling down on this premise that he will not tolerate these terrorists attacking and persecuting Christians. And I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, so I don't think it was a coincidence that this happened on Christmas, that he acted to defend Christians who were under intense persecution from Islamic radicals in Nigeria on Christmas Day. The angel on Christmas promised peace on earth to men of goodwill, not to all. And there's no peace on earth for Boko Haram right now.
Mark, you had a great Washington Post op-ed kind of talking about this, your headline, what MAGA Republicans really think of Trump's foreign policy. Turns out President Trump understands his base better than the isolationists and the alt-right. Do you see this as part of that foreign policy and how the base understands him?
100%. Look, Donald Trump is not an isolationist. He never was. And neither is the MAGA base. The MAGA base supports all the things he's doing. Think about what he's done this year. He bombed the Houthis. He bombed Iran's nuclear program. He's bombing Venezuelan gunboats and blockading Venezuelan harbors. He's bombed ISIS terrorists in Syria. Now he's bombed ISIS terrorists in Nigeria. This man is not an isolationist. There is nobody in my lifetime who has flexed American military muscle in the cause of peace better than Donald Trump. And the polls show, if you look at the Reagan Institute poll, every one of the things that President Trump is doing, the MAGA base supports this. MAGA is not an isolationist movement. And Donald Trump is not an isolationist president. He is standing, and by the way, he's doing more for Ukraine than Joe Biden ever did. He's allowing the Ukrainians to fire into Russia with U.S. missiles. He's arming them without taxpayer dollars, with the Europeans paying for it, but he's giving them more and better weapons than they ever got from the Biden administration. So he's really not an isolationist. He is flexing American military might on the world stage, and it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, Mark, you just set us up perfect to take a little bit of a turn, because I did want to get you on what's happening with Ukraine. We have some developments here. I mean, we are learning that President Zelensky may be coming soon to the White House, possibly by this weekend. We see Zelensky tweeting on Christmas that he's having great conversations with Witkoff. Here's what he says. He says, "We had a very good conversation with President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. We are truly working 24/7 to bring closer the end of this brutal Russian war against Ukraine. May today's conversation become another step towards peace." It's unclear exactly what President Putin is willing to do, but even this talk of a possible DMZ that Zelensky may warm up to, what do you make of it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think Steve Witkoff is one of the most unfairly maligned people in American public life. He's trying to help President Trump achieve his goal of ending the war in Ukraine and saving Ukraine as a sovereign and independent country. And the Ukrainians have been partners in this. They've agreed to everything, starting months ago when they said that they would agree to an immediate ceasefire. It was Putin who said he wouldn't agree to the immediate ceasefire. Everything the United States has asked for, Ukraine is doing. And the reason they now, even to include withdrawing from territory that they control, the key was they wanted to see what the U.S. security guarantees were going to be. And apparently that's moving along pretty well. I mean, again, President Trump has offered the Ukrainians an Article 5 style, NATO style security guarantee as part of any peace deal, which means that if Russia reinvades, the United States and the NATO allies will come to Ukraine's defense. That's the kind of security guarantee you need, because Putin doesn't want to end the war. He doesn't want peace. He wants Ukraine. The only way he doesn't restart the war when Trump is gone is if there are strong security guarantees in place. And Trump is helping them craft that. And then it's going to be up to Putin to say whether he's going to agree or not. And the pressure will be on him.
The pressure is indeed, you put it so well, Mark, it's unclear whether or not Putin will come to the table and be a good faith negotiator or whether he's going to continue to do what he has done. Mark Thiessen, thank you for taking time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.